Welcome back to Good Morning Quad Cities at 11, and we have Craig here answering all of our plant and garden questions. They're on our Facebook page, so feel free. You still got a lot of time to get those questions in. Well, not a lot of time, but a fair amount of time to get those questions in, and hopefully we can get to most of them. So Dave, I'll let you take Cindy's question.
So Cindy has a little bit of a long one. So Craig, I put out 3 bars of Irish Spring soap on stakes in my flowers to deter deer from eating the buds and my hostas. All 3 have disappeared as something ate them. Found 1 little ball of soap left on the ground yesterday, and even it is gone today. I made a sling out of twine for soap and hung it in branches at the end of the garden, and it's still there and still not near the deer's preferred dining area. What can I do now?
Well, the thing is, with that Irish Spring or whatever smelly soap you're deciding to use, cut it up into little 1-inch chunks, and then use nylons. Drop it in do people wear nylons anymore?
Yes, pantyhose, tights, anything, any of those.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, tie up little sachets, and you can use like twist ties to hang them in your trees. What would be eating that soap? I have no idea, but obviously they had been saying some bad words.
Yes.
Oh, well, at least their breath probably smells a little better now, right? Betty wants to know, my iris leaves have small brown spots and streaks. Is this a disease or insect? How do I treat it?
Okay, it could be either a fungus or it might be the early sign of iris borer. The important thing is to go out and spray. I would use something like malathion to spray your iris, and I would spray them on a regular basis for maybe the next month or so, maybe about every 10 days to go ahead. And if that iris borer works his way, he starts on the leaf, he eats his way down into the iris rhizome, and then he just totally cleans out the entire rhizome. You end up with just this hollow tube in the ground and no more iris.
Wow. Brenda says, my tulips put out leaves this year, but no buds. Can I do anything to help them bloom next year?
Yes. When tulips are in the ground for several years, they divide, and they literally crowd themselves out. So what I would be doing right now is mark those clumps of tulips. Then 1st of September, the proper time to plant bulbs, you will dig them up, you will separate them, and then you will plant them 6 inches deep. At least, that's the pointy end of the bulb, 6 inches down. They don't divide quite so quickly when they're planted good and deep. And then it'll take a couple of years again, but they will build back up to a blooming size over a period of time. And remember, keep that, if you've got green leaves on these bulbs, keep the fertilizer running.
All right, I'm going to sneak in one of my own questions because we were talking about it in the break. How do I get rid of Virginia creeper that's in an ivy bed? So I've got ivy and then I've got Virginia creeper.
Okay, you have to get very creative in this situation. You put on a rubber glove. Over that, you put on just a plain old cheap cotton glove. You mix up your Roundup, you dip your fingers in the Roundup, and then you go out and you paint just the undesirable plants. Wow. Not getting it on your desirable plants, and it'll do its dirty work. It has to go through the leaves to get into the plant, and then you can just throw the gloves away and no more Virginia creeper.
Good to know.
Okay. And then Laura says, when do you trim a Japanese maple? Want it to look like a tree, not a bush.
Okay, I would do this kind of pruning during the winter while the ground is still frozen. Like all other maples, these trees can bleed quite badly. They don't take really well to pruning, but if you do it when the ground is frozen, they're not going to have an adverse reaction to the pruning. And remember, don't prune these up, or any tree, too fast, because those lower branches are helping the trunks fill out in diameter. You take off the lower branches too soon, the trunk stays really wispy, so they don't build up.
Is that a technical
Was that a good wispy?
I was going to say, that's a technical term.
I love it.
All right, our last question today. Ken wants to know, when is a good time to trim purple ash trees?
Purple ash? Mm-hmm. They can be trimmed most any time. They're not as affected by pruning as other trees, but I really hope that you're keeping your tree and shrub protector on that plant, because as always, we haven't seen one yet, but the emerald ash borer is going to rear its ugly head in the next month or so. You've got to keep those trees protected.
Ooh, gross.
No, gotta remember that.
That's right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Craig, and thank you for joining us on our Facebook Live. And make sure you join us every single Wednesday where Craig will answer those questions. Good Morning Quad Cities at 11 continues right after this.